Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. It's time for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. This is Lena Gersa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And today I am so excited to share with you one of my very favorite stamp sets from the July-December mini catalog called Soft Seedlings. Now, I have made no secret of the fact that I absolutely love fall. It's my favorite time of year. I love the cooler temperatures and the sweater weather and the bright sunshine and blue skies. I even love the cloudy, rainy days too, but I especially love the colorful leaves. And here in our area in Southern Ontario, it's just starting. So the leaves are just starting to change. We have a few trees that are fully on fire and we have some that are just starting. And it's just such a gorgeous time of year. In the next couple of weeks by our Canadian Thanksgiving, it is going to be absolutely stunning. So I cannot wait. Actually, our wedding anniversary is coming up on Thanksgiving weekend too. And there's a reason that we got married in October, because it's my very favorite month. So it's no surprise that I love the Soft Seedling stamp set. It is so beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous images, and lovely scripty sort of handwritten font sentiments. So this set went right to the top of my list when I first saw it in the catalog. And it's kind of a sleeper actually, because there's no coordinating dies. It's not part of a bundle or a suite. It's just a standalone stamp set. But man, oh man, is it one that is a must-have. So I have been playing with this nonstop. I actually designed a class around it. I can't stop playing with it. I've been experimenting with different ways to color the image. So I'm going to share 3 projects with you today, showing you some different ways to use the stamps and to color the image. But I'm also going to show you a whole bunch of other samples that I've made to give you some more inspiration. So with that in mind, let me see if I can pull up my video here on my iPad so I can see who's with me. Oh, Laura's here. Hi, Jill. Hi, Diane. Welcome. So we are going, as I said, to make 3 projects today, but I have so much more to share with you. So you'll want to stick around right to the end, because I'll have lots more inspiration to kind of give you a little sneak peek on at the end of my demonstration. Okay. But for now, I'm going to stop chit-chatting and we're going to get to it. Okay. So let me flip the camera and we will get going here. Alrighty. Oh, look at that. I actually got it centered today. Usually I'm way off. That's not too bad. A little on the crooked side, but there we go. Okay, I think we are good. Hi, Laurel. Welcome. Hi, Joyce. Hi, Holly. So, Soft Seedling stamp set. Beautiful maple leaf. I mean, Canadians, we all love the maple leaf, right? And this is just such a beautiful stamped image. It has beautiful shading built right into it. You're going to see that when I show you it stamped in a minute. And then these beautiful sort of scripty, handwritten sentiments. I love fonts like this because honestly, if you stamp it crooked, it doesn't matter. It looks like somebody hand wrote it crooked, right? So you don't have to worry about it. But it's a great one, and I'm going to show you 3 projects. So here we go. Oh, Joyce, you're in BC. Well, enjoy your vacation or your trip, and we will see you when you get back. All right, so our first project we're going to make today is this one. I posted this earlier today, and I just love it. I love the soft shades of green in this one and a little bit of gray. So I kind of got away from the autumn fall color palette for this one, and I really am happy with it. So let me show you. I've done a lot ahead of time, just in the interest of time. So to start, I started with a 4 by 5¼ inch piece of basic white cardstock, and on it I stamped the maple leaf image twice using smoky slate ink, but stamping off once. So it's really almost like a ghost of an image. And then I ran it through my cut and emboss machine with the timber embossing folder, and that gives it that beautiful wood grain. Okay, so you always want to stamp before you emboss. That's just a little tip. If you emboss first and then try to stamp, you're not going to get a great image. Okay, so that's my background. And then here I have 3 of these beautiful maple leaves, cut one from smoky slate in full strength. Okay, one in soft succulent, and then one in evening evergreen. So these are just stamped. I'm going to show you how beautiful these images are stamped. So I'm going to take my soft succulent ink pad here, and I'm going to ink up the stamp, and I'm just going to stamp the leaf, and you're going to see Look at the beautiful shading in that. Is it not absolutely gorgeous? Now, if you find that you're getting a sort of blotchy image here, you're not getting that beautiful shading, it could be that your ink pad is too juicy. Okay, so there are a couple of things you can do. One is you take just the back of a plastic spoon or even your bone folder and you massage your ink pad a little bit. And that will press some of that excess ink down into the pad so that you get a better quality stamped image. Okay, that's just a function of the fact that our ink pads, when they're closed, store upside down, right? So if you have a really juicy pad and you're trying to stamp with this stamp and you're getting something that looks kind of blotchy, try massaging your pad first. That's the easiest fix. Now, if you're still having issues, then another way to ink your stamp is using a sponge dauber. So apply the ink using a dauber. You'll actually get less ink on the stamp and get more even coverage. You're going to see me stamp with a dauber on the next card. Okay, so those are just some stamping tips for this image, but look at how gorgeous that is. Isn't it pretty? Oh, love it. All right, so there's our background. I have already stamped and fussy cut these ahead of time just because I figured you guys didn't need to watch me fussy cut. So we're going to arrange our leaves. So our smoky slate one's going to kind of go up. Our evergreen one's going to go down, and then the succulent one's going to kind of go on top at an angle. So I'm going to go ahead and stick these two background. Oh, this one's got some adhesive sheets on the back. Look at that. So why don't we just use it? Because it's there. So we're just going to stick that down. Okay, no adhesive sheets on this one. So we'll add a little bit of glue to the back of this one, and we're going to kind of put it on right about there. So this one's going to go on here, but before we add it, we're going to add a little hint of metallic here. So this is actually the silver twine or silver thread that is left when you pull, you've seen me on several occasions pull out the threads from the silver threaded twine that is in the catalog. Once you pull out the twine, what you're left is with is this silver thread. So I'm not going to waste it. So we're going to apply a little bit of adhesive to the back of our leaf here. And then we're just going to kind of do a little loop-de-loop with our thread here. And I'm not really being super careful. It's kind of curly to begin with. So I'm just going to kind of stick it to the back of my leaf and let it peek out behind. It really helps when you're playing with this stuff to have your adhesive down already so you're not like wrestling with it. Because trying to wrangle this thread, because it's already curly, and adding adhesive while you're still wrangling it is a little bit of a challenge. Ask me how I know. Okay, so put your adhesive down first and then you won't have too much trouble with it. Okay, so it looks like a hot mess on the back, but when I flip it over, I get that little bit of thread peeking out. So we're going to add a couple of dimensionals to the back here. Oh, hi Penny, hi June, hi Mary. Mary, Judy from Wawa. I almost called you Mary again, Judy. I can't wait till you can change your name back. I'm sure you can't too. Welcome, I'm glad you could join us. We're playing with the Soft Seedlings stamp set today. So I've got my thread on the back. I've added my dimensional. So we're just going to stick that on. So we see a little bit of that silver peeking out. Okay. Then we're going to add our sentiment. So our sentiment is going to go on. I've heat embossed this ahead of time in silver and die cut it using the Stylish Shapes dies. Now this is going to go on here, but before I do that, we're going to add a little bit of spatter texture to our background. So I'm going to set this out of the way. So to add my spatter, I'm using my Evening Evergreen Stampin' Right marker. And all I'm going to do is just flick the marker against the lid like this. And you see how we get that gorgeous spatter effect? Isn't that pretty? Love it! And so easy to do. So the one thing that would make this stamp set better is a spatter stamp. But we improvised, right? We made our own spatter, so we're good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add our sentiment. I'm going to put a little bit of tape over the end that's going to overlap our popped leaf. And then I'm going to add a couple of dimensionals on the other end. Hi, Gail. How are you? I hope you are having a good week. All right, so we're going to lay this across, hopefully straight-ish. Is that straight? Not really. Let's fix that up a bit. It always helps to start with your card base straight. or your paper straight, and then it's easier to get things. That's not bad. I can live with that. Okay, so then this is going to get layered on a piece of soft succulent cardstock. So this is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 inches. So we're going to apply a little bit of adhesive to the back of our panel here. I'm going slowly with my seal because, as you have seen in the past, if I go too fast on the back of embossed cardstock, it can tear the cardstock. So you want to take your time when you're adding your seal to the back of embossed cardstock. Okay, so there is our card front. Now that's going to get layered on a thick basic white card base, 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored in the middle at 5 1/2. So we'll fold that in half along our score line. And you definitely want to use a bone folder when you're using the thick basic white to make sure you get a nice crisp fold. The thick basic white is quite heavyweight. So we're going to add our card front to our card base. There we go. And then the last touch is a little bit of silver bling. So I have some of our festive pearls, and I've already used all the gold ones, but I got lots of silver. So we're just going to grab a couple of these little silver pearls. They look like little gems here. And for a change, I'm actually doing more than 3. I usually only do 3. But sometimes I like to bling it up a little more. So I'm using 5. So odd numbers when you're adding these kinds of embellishments. And there's our finished card. Isn't that pretty? So simple. So just 3 different colors of stamp leaves. I fussy cut the leaves and layered them. Isn't that pretty? Love it. All right. So that's that one done. Well, let's bring in number 2. Number 2 is this one. I posted this yesterday. So this is a different inking technique I'm going to show you in a minute. But I also want to talk about this beautiful background. So let's start with that. I'm going to bring in my embossed cardstock. So this is just a piece of embossed basic white cardstock. It's 2 3/4 by 5 inches. Okay. And I was actually examining our maple tree in our front yard the other day and noticed that there's a lot of like a burgundy with the green right now. Eventually it's going to turn yellow. That's kind of what our tree generally does. But right now it's got burgundy and green in it. It's just gorgeous. So I wanted to kind of replicate that with this card. So I'm going to start with some soft succulent ink and my blending brush. And I'm just going to apply some of that soft succulent all over my embossed panel. Now, this is embossed using the Timeless Type embossing folder. It's a great folder for adding subtle texture, little bit of a sort of shabby chic or grunge look to it. And I love it. And you're going to see as I'm adding this color that the embossed image really pops. Because by adding the ink and brushing it on, we're actually hitting that raised pattern and making it stand out a little bit against the background. So I've applied the soft succulent to start all over, okay? Because I just kind of want that subtle green sort of as my base. Okay, then I'm going to come in with some Merry Merlot. You don't see me use this color very often, and I have no idea why. It's a beautiful burgundy shade. So I'm going to come in with my Merry Merlot, and we're going to apply a little bit of this beautiful burgundy, and look at how those colors sort of interact. Aren't they gorgeous? Nature is your best color palette. When you're trying to figure out colors that work together, go take a walk outside. Because this was totally inspired by our maple tree out front in our front yard. So I'm adding the Merry Merlot just kind of around the outside. I still want to keep that base of the soft green sort of towards the center. But look at how pretty those colors are together. Aren't they gorgeous? So we're just going to add that beautiful burgundy. Okay, and then I wanted to come in with a little bit of the darker Evening Evergreen, just to darken it down a little bit. So we're going to bring back our green brush and a little bit of Evening Evergreen. I'm going to start at the bottom, And where it overlaps the burgundy, it's almost going to look brown, which I'm totally okay with. I actually quite like that look. But then as I come up over the parts that don't have the burgundy, it just brings out that raised pattern while still keeping that subtle soft green in the background. And I just love the effect on this. So a couple more swipes of the brush here. I'm gonna add a little bit more green in the center, just over the raised. Now I'm not pressing hard at all with my brush because I really just want to catch that raised surface. I don't really want to hit the background. I want the background to stay the soft light green. So there we go. Isn't that pretty? I was tempted to just kind of leave that as my focal image because it's so pretty. I love it so much. All right, so I'm going to leave these inks out because we're going to use them to stamp our leaf in just a sec. So that's our background. We're going to set that aside for a minute, and we are going to stamp our leaf image. So I have here a basic white stitched rectangle. Okay, it's cut using the stitched rectangle dies. And I'm going to grab a couple of sponge daubers. I need one for Merlot and one for Evergreen, and then also my soft succulent pad. So I'm going to bring in my leaf stamp. This still has soft succulent ink on it from the last card, so I'm not going to worry about cleaning it. So I'm going to start by inking the stamp with my soft succulent ink pad. Okay. Then I'm going to come in with my Mary Merlot and my dauber, and I'm going to apply some of the Mary Merlot kind of around the bottom, a little bit up into the middle, and just the bottoms of the little seed keys here. Okay, so that is the Mary Merlot. Then I'm going to come in with my Evening Evergreen, and I'm just going to hit sort of the top points on my leaf here. That's really all I want. Okay, and then we're going to stamp on our stitched rectangle. And we're going to have this beautiful multicolored image. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, so pretty and so easy to do. Now, I want to show you a cool little trick. If I want this Merlot color to stand out a little bit, I can bring in my blender pen. Now, I should be really clear. This is not to be mistaken with Stampin' Blends. Stampin' Blends are alcohol-based markers. Okay, they have color in them. This is a blender pen intended to be used with water-based ink, and it actually helps to blend that color. So you're going to see, I'm going to go over the Merlot portion of the stamped image, and you're going to see, can you see the part that I colored and the part that I haven't? See how that color just pops a little bit more by blending it? So I'm just brushing this over the stamped image. I'm not doing a whole lot of shading or anything. I'm just taking and I'm pulling the ink that was laid down by the stamp and blending it a little bit and softening it down so I get a little bit more vibrant color there. Can you see that? Isn't that pretty? And then I'm going to do the same thing on my little keys here. And then I'm actually just going to kind of run my pen along the stems. And again, that's just going to blur the stem a little bit and soften the image and spread the ink ever so slightly. Okay, just like that. So pretty. All right, so now it's really just a matter of assembling things. So we have here our background panel. This is a piece of texture chic designer series paper. It's cut to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And I'm going to bring in my beautiful embossed piece, and it is going to layer along the left side of my panel. So I'll add again, slowly, some seal to the back of our embossed panel. And now there is text on here, so you just kind of want to pay attention so your text is not upside down when you glue it on. Again, ask me how I know. If I give you a tip, you guys, it's because I have made that mistake and I'm trying to save you from making it, okay? So there you go. So there is our background. So, so pretty. Then we are going to layer our leaf on a piece of gorgeous rose gold foil. Now this is a newer product. It came out in the annual. rose gold foil sheets. There's sort of this brushed one, and then there's a really bright, almost iridescent one. So I'm using the brush, and look at how beautiful that gold is with the burgundy. I just think those colors work so beautifully together. So we're gonna add a little bit of adhesive here. And we are going to stick this down on our rose gold piece. I will put the measurements for these up afterwards, you guys, just because I can't remember the dimensions of this rectangle. But I will put them up for you after. Okay, so that is going to go on there and get centered. Now get popped. Before we do that, we're going to add a little bit of spatter again, because why not? So again, I'm just taking my Evening Evergreen marker and adding some spatter. And I think that just adds such fantastic texture to that image. Okay, so we're gonna put this on. We're gonna pop it. As soon as I find my dimensionals, they're buried. Where are you? There you are. So we'll just add a couple of these bad boys to the back of our leaf here. So get rid of all of these. And this is going to go on to the right. Now, when I put this on, I kind of want to pay attention to my border here. I kind of want it to be fairly equal to the border that's on the left, and I want it centered top to bottom. So it's going to go on right about there. Okay. And then we need to do our sentiment. So our sentiment, I have another stitched rectangle. So same set of dies, just different size rectangle. And we are going to stamp our Thinking of You sentiment on our stitch rectangle using Evening Evergreen ink. And again, remember how I said we don't have to worry too much about getting these straight because they're scripty and they look handwritten, and if you screw it up, it's okay. The person just wrote crooked, right? I love that about this stamp set. So there is our sentiment. We are going to layer that on another piece of the rose gold foil. So that's going to layer quite nicely. We'll add a little bit of seal there and layer that up. That's a little on the short side on that end, so let's just peel that up. We'll start on this end this time. Get that even. There we go. That's better. Then we're going to wrap a little bit of twine on the end. So we're going to just take a glue dot and add that to the back of our little label here. I'm going to press the end of my twine into my glue dot. I'm just going to wrap it a couple of times. I like to kind of crisscross when I'm doing this. And then trim it off. So I stuck the other end into the glue dot as well. Okay, so that's going to secure that. Then we're going to add a couple of these little keys. So I fussy cut these from the sentiment, or from the maple leaf image. So we're going to add those. We're going to tuck them in, and we're going to secure them with just a little smidge of liquid glue. So one little dab. This guy can go up here. And another little dab on this one. And we'll add this guy in here. Just like that. Okay, and then we're going to add our bow, which we're going to tie. So here I have some linen thread. We're just going to do a double thickness bow. So we make a loop, we bring our tail around and through. So I'm not actually tying a knot first, I'm just starting with a loop. And that keeps my bow from having a really bulky knot. Okay, so there's no actual knot to start. Just some loops. And we'll trim off our tails here. Once again, I forgot my ribbon scissors. So we're using our paper snips. And we're going to add that over our twine. So I'll just take a glue dot, press the knot of my bow in there, and then that's going to go just between my little seed keys there. Okay, now when you have twine, see how this is kind of flying away and out of control? If you want it to go in a particular direction, you just kind of run it between your nail and your thumb, and you can kind of shape it to go where you want it to. Okay, when you have unruly twine, don't you wish our hair was that easy to tame? Some days it's like, why do I even bother? So we'll just trim these off a little bit. And then this is going to go on, just offset a little bit. So we're going to put some seal where it overlaps, and then a dimensional right on the ends. Now, I should also mention, actually, no, this is fine. I was going to say something, but not necessary. We're good. So this is going to go on, again, offset a little bit. I just want to keep in mind the edge of my background here, so I don't want it to go so far off that my seed keys are kind of hanging off the edge of my background panel there. Okay, so there is our sentiment. And then that, again, is going to go on the exact same type card base that we had on the first card. So 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored in the middle at 5 1/2. So we're going to fold that in half along our score line, and then add our adhesive. Oh, come on, work with me, seal. If you find that you have a hard time getting your seal to come out, this is another little tip that I've discovered. Once you get your first pass down, if you're trying to do, like, so I've done 1, 2, 3. To do this last bit, I'm going to make sure I start over top of the adhesive that's already there. And what I find is that grabs. So sometimes if your adhesive is back and you feel like you have to advance it with your finger, if you start over the sticky part, the part that's already sticky, you don't have to. That was a little trick that I discovered when I first started using seal and I was kind of getting used to it. That was something that made my life much easier. But there you go. On the inside of my sample, I stamped another beautiful leaf. Okay, but just really, really pretty and simple card. This would be a lovely sympathy card even. Okay, so there is number 2. Hope you girls like that one. And on to number 3. So this is number 3. So I pulled out my picture this dies because I thought it would be kind of cool to almost be like looking through a window. One of my favorite things up at my parents' place, they live up north, is to sit, they have a beautiful picture window in their living room, and just sit and look at the beautiful fall foliage. So I was kind of channeling that a little bit when I made this card. But this also uses another technique for adding color to our leaves. So we're going to start with another piece of 4 by 5 1/4 inch white cardstock. And I do need to clean my leaf stamp because we need to start with yellow. And we do not want all those other colors on there from the last card. So we'll give this a quick scrub. And we're going to bring in our color palette. So this is a more traditional fall palette. These are my go-to fall colors. They're totally inky because I have been using these nonstop. I am using these pretty much daily right now because I love my fall color palette. So we're going to start with Crushed Curry. I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm just going to stamp this on my white cardstock. Okay, so there's the yellow. And then we're going to come in with some pumpkin pie. Now, because I'm working from light to dark, I don't actually need to clean my stamp in between. I started with the yellow. I'm going to come in with the orange, and we're going to add that right about there. Look at those colors. Oh, so yummy. I love fall. And then we're going to come in with our cherry cobbler. Again, I don't need to worry about cleaning my stamp. And we're going to add the cherry cobbler at the bottom. Okay, so they're quite pretty as they are. We could totally leave this as it is, but as I said, I was trying to experiment with different ways to add color to the stamped image. So I pulled out my watercolor pencils and started playing around. So I'm going to start with my yellow leaf, and I'm using my pumpkin pie watercolor pencil. And all I'm going to do is just lightly add a little bit of orange, sort of over the lighter part of the stamped image here. Now, a couple of tips when you're using watercolor pencils. Notice how dull my tips are. You want to keep your pencils quite dull. That applies color more evenly, and it doesn't indent your cardstock. You know when you're coloring with a really hard point or a pointy pencil, it tends to leave indentations in the paper. Well, if we do that when we're using these watercolor pencils, we're going to end up, when we blend it, we're going to see those strokes. We don't want to see that. Okay, so I've added my orange. So now I'm going to come back with my blender pen, Make sure it's clean. When you're using a blender pen, it does pick up whatever ink you use it on, right? So I was using it on that Merlot, so I just want to kind of color it for a couple seconds on my grid paper. The tip will stain, but the color will not remain, okay? So I'm now good to go. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to blend that orange that I laid down with my watercolor pencil in with the yellow ink that I stamped. And you're going to see we're going to get some color variation in here. Now I'm not doing a whole lot of scrubbing and blending. When you're using a blender pen, it really works best on watercolor paper. However, I am just using regular white here. And it works so long as you don't do a whole lot of blending. If you kind of scrub back and forth too much, you're going to end up causing the paper to pill. Okay, and it'll start to peel. But there we go. Then we have that beautiful variegated color. So now we're going to go to our orange. So I've got my pumpkin pie leaf. I'm bringing in my cherry cobbler watercolor pencil. And same idea. I'm just going to color over the lighter portion of the stamped image here. I'm not putting down a ton of color. If you really want strong color, actually, why don't I'm going to put down a fair bit. I'm going to apply a little bit more pressure here just to show you that you can actually add fairly vibrant color with the watercolor pencils. So I'm adding the red. Okay, then I'm going to come in again with my blender pen and I'm going to blend this in. And you're going to see how that just causes the red and the pumpkin to just sort of blend together and we get this gorgeous variegated shading. Isn't that pretty? I love this technique. So using your watercolor pencils with a stamped image in ink and then blending it out is a great way to get shading. Okay, so there is our pumpkin. And then for my cherry cobbler one, I am going to add a little bit of early espresso. Hi, Tracy. Glad you made it. Hi, Laura. No problem being late. You can go back and watch the replay. We're just working on our third card. So for this one, I stamped in cherry cobbler, and then I'm going to take my early espresso. Now, this is super dull, but that's okay. We want dull, because that is the easiest way to lay down nice even color. So I want this one to look a little bit more rust colored. So I'm adding the early espresso. Add this. And again, I'm laying down a fair bit. I'm not pressing super hard, but there's a fair bit of brown in there. And then again, I'm going to come in with my blender pen and I'm going to blend that out. And look at how that red blends. Isn't that beautiful? Look at the difference. This is blended with a blender pen and this is just stamped. So beautiful. So many cool things you can do with this stamped image. I'll show you a couple of other ideas once I'm done here. But lots of different ways to apply color to your image or directly to your stamp and then create a colored stamped image. So we'll just blend this out. And it's fun to experiment with different color combinations too, right? So I just use my good old 3 go-to fall colors. Early espresso is usually my fall neutral, but you can play around with these. I actually did a little palette for a class I have coming up where I experimented with different color combinations. So there we go. Isn't that pretty? So easy, but that's it. That's all there is to it. Just coloring a little bit with your watercolor pencil and then blending it with your blender pen. Okay. All right. So let's finish this up. We're going to add a little bit of spatter to this one, but this time I'm going to use early espresso. So same deal. I'm just taking my marker and I'm going to do a little flicky across my leaves and a little bit on the background just to add some texture. Okay. Not sure how well that shows up on the camera, but it's there. Trust me. I'll hold it up so you can probably see if I hold it up closer. Okay. And then I have my die cut background. So again, this is a piece of craft cardstock, and it's die cut using the Picture This dies. And then I've taken and added some early espresso ink with my blender brush to darken it down. So you can see this is the craft color, the natural craft. Okay, and then I've added, I've darkened it down with the early espresso. So we're gonna go ahead and layer that just like that. So it's like we're looking through a window. And easiest way to do this is with a little bit of liquid glue, just to make sure you kind of get all of your sections stuck down. So we'll just add a bit of glue here. And then layer this. Now I did cut this one a teensy bit larger than my white piece, just to make sure I could layer it and not have any of the white peeking out behind. So it's just a touch larger. And we don't really have to get it perfectly straight because it doesn't really matter. We're not going to see the white piece. But we do want to make sure that we don't see any of the white peeking out behind the craft. Okay, so there is our card front. Isn't that pretty? So simple, but really, really pretty. So this is going to get glued onto an early espresso card base. This is 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. So we're going to go ahead and fold this in half along our score line. And then we are going to go ahead and stick that down. Did I emboss or die cut first on the last card? Oh, this one I die cut first and then embossed. If you emboss and then die cut, you're going to squish your embossing a little bit. Okay, Holly? You always want to die cut, then emboss. All right, and then you'll get your full, that nice raised texture. Okay, so we're going to stick this down so you can see how my craft piece was a little bit larger than the white. And that doesn't matter because nobody's going to see it. So we'll add our adhesive and we're going to pop this on. I had my red leaf at the bottom just because there's a little bit of real estate here for me to add my sentiment. So that was my logic there, but you could totally do it the other way. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so there's our background. Now for our sentiment, I actually use some of our little leaf tags and gems. These are part of the Rustic Harvest suite. They come pre-cut like this, so you don't have to have a die cutting machine. They have the little hole for the tag, which I used to add my ribbon to. So we're gonna just stamp our So Grateful in early espresso ink right on that little leaf. Oh, Lori, you gave away all your markers. No! All right, so we're going to go ahead and stamp our So Grateful. Whoops. There we go. And then we're going to crumple it. I know this is going to distress some people, but I love the texture. Think about like dried, like rustling leaves, right? Fall leaves are not perfectly flat. They are crinkly and wrinkly. So now that that ink has had a second to dry, we are going to crumple our leaf up. I'm sorry if this bothers some people. But I really wanted to add that sort of realistic texture to my leaf here. So you just want to take care that you don't actually tear your leaf as you're crinkling it. So just kind of fold it and crumple it as best you can. All right, and it looks so much better like that, let's be honest. So we're gonna go ahead and stick this down. Now I'm gonna use some dimensionals. I don't want it to stick perfectly flat because I want to maintain some of that sort of wrinkly texture. So I'm just gonna kind of add a couple of dimensionals here, and I'm going to add one right below the tip because that's where my bow is going to go. Okay, so we'll get rid of our backings and we'll pop this on. Now I just want to make sure my So Grateful is relatively straight. Again, it's a handwritten font, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, but can you see how this is sort of hanging out and it's kind of crinkled and wrinkled? That's the look I'm going for. Then, oh, I forgot to add my little wheat. We can still tuck it in. I almost forgot. So I have here some little wheat stems, I guess. These are cut actually using the harvest dies. So these are in the annual catalog. And I cut them from some distressed gold specialty paper. I may have to trim my stems here because I'm going to have to tuck this in behind my leaf because I forgot to put it on earlier. You know what? Maybe we can peel this guy up. There we go. We can peel that dimensional off and stick this on. So that is going to stick right there. So I have some adhesive sheets on the back of this just to make it easy to stick down. I just wanted this little bit of gold metallic to add, and my nails are so bad right now. I have to use my take your pick, just get the backing off. There we go. So we're going to pop this on. We're right about here. I don't really care whether my stems are flat. I just want my little wheat stalks here to be straight. So here we go. We'll stick those down. Sometimes you just have to take your time and be patient with these bits, especially when it has the adhesive sheets on, because they want to stick to your fingers. And then we'll put our leaf back down. Okay, and that just adds that little bit of gold texture. And then here, this is a piece of that silver threaded twine. Remember how I had the silver threads on the first card? Well, this was the last thread from that silver threaded twine. So I'm just going to fold it in half and tie myself a little double bow here. So we'll fix this up. Hi, Martine. Thank you. I'm glad you could join me. You caught part of me live. You can always go back and watch the first 2 cards on replay. So I'm just going to trim the tails there a little bit, and then that is going to go right over my little hole there where you can see the dimensional peeking through. So it's just going to go right there. And there's my little bow. Okay, and then in the package of these little leaf tags, we also have these gorgeous amber colored gems. So we're going to add a couple of those because they're just so beautiful and so fall. So we're just going to add 1 and 2 and 3. And there we go. Done and done. Let me clean my mess up. Here we go. This feels like this. There we go. I felt like that light was really dim. It's because I didn't have it on all the way. So there we go. There's number 3. So let me bring them all back. So there is number 2. There is number 1. So those are our 3 projects that I just showed you today. But let me show you a couple of other ideas using this stamp set. So I was experimenting with different ways to color the image, and I pulled out my chalk pastels. Now, these are in the annual catalog. You may not even know we carry them. They've hardly been used. I think I've used them once. So this, to create this card, I stamped my leaf in Versamark. So that's our sticky ink. And then I just took my chalk pastel, I shaved off a little bit of a couple of colors, and then I just took a paintbrush to pick up the chalk and brushed it onto my leaf. You could use a Q-tip, that works as well. And just brush the color onto my leaves. And I love the soft, delicate effect of that. Totally different from these, right? But just a really gorgeous look. Here's another one. So remember how I die cut these? Well, I had these little rectangles left, so I used them as a background for this card. So again, ombre stamping, same kind of idea as I did here, just with a different color palette. Here's a quick little gatefold, really simple. But again, ombre stamping using the pumpkin and the crushed curry. This one I absolutely love. So this technique is actually, I've stamped on watercolor paper and then used a blender or a water painter to color and blend in some other colors of ink. And look at that. It looks like they're hand painted. Well, they are kind of, but they're stamped and then painted over top. So pretty. This is a fun watercolor technique. So we start with wet watercolor paper and then stamp the leaf image, and it kind of blurs and runs, and then you spritz it a little bit more and you get that gorgeous sort of watercolor look. And then this one, I actually just recorded a reel that shows how to do this one. It'll show up on my Instagram feed on Thursday. So some strategic masking, a little bit of ink blending, and some stamping, but a really pretty look for that one as well. So there you go. Lots and lots of ideas using the Soft Seedlings stamp set. This is the best deal in the catalog, if you ask me. Here in Canada, it retails for $28, which is a steal given all the things that you can do with it. So if you haven't snagged this set yet, you're going to want to take a second look at it. It is a great one. And then pull out all your coloring goodies and start messing around and playing around with ways to add color. It's just so much fun. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed these projects. Make sure you're following me on Instagram because I will post my reel that shows how to make this one. And I post lots of other things that I don't necessarily show in my videos here on Facebook. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Have a great week, and I will see you next week for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. Bye for now.